Muslims do come up to me an awful lot, and they always say, listen, there's nowhere that Jesus ever says, I am God. And since he never says, I am God, therefore he never claimed to be God. Therefore, why do you consider him to be God when he never made that claim himself? And I said, that may be so. He probably didn't use the word, I am God. He probably didn't even speak English. In fact, I don't even think English existed in the first century. So just don't look for I am God in the New Testament. What you need to ask is, what languages would he have spoken? Well, he would have known Aramaic, he would have known Hebrew, and he certainly would have known Greek, because those are the languages that were used. Greek because he spoke to the centurion. That would be the only way he could communicate to him. Aramaic and Hebrew because that's his mother tongues. Now, in those contexts, we need to ask also, who is he speaking to whenever he made what I would call divine claims, whenever he claimed to be God, and he did. To the Jews. It was to the Jews that primarily that he talked about being God. So the best place to go to is probably to the Sanhedrin. Let's go to the Sanhedrin in Matthew chapter 26, starting with verse 63. Let's start with verse 63, where he's in the Sanhedrin. Those were all the priests were there, and the chief priest Caiaphas is talking to him there in the Sanhedrin. So in the Sanhedrin, Caiaphas comes up to him, and he says, I charge you under oath by the living God, tell us if you are the Christ, which is the Messiah, as Muslims know him as the Messiah, al-Masihu, the Son of God. So he's asking him two questions. Are you the Messiah, the Christ, or are you the Son of God? Fascinating. Those are both divine claims. That's why Caiaphas was asking him. They were all waiting for the Messiah. Who is the Messiah? The Anointed One. What does the Anointed do? The Anointed One comes to save. Who can save but God? They were waiting for the Son of God all the way through the Old Testament. The Son of God, not a Son of God. I'm a son of God. Many of you who are watching are sons of God, but only one could be called the Son of God, and that is God himself. So he's asking him this question, are you either the Messiah or the Son of God? And look how Jesus responds. Yes, it is as you say. But then Jesus goes on. Look what he does next. But I say to all of you, in the future you will see the Son of Man sitting on the right hand of the Mighty One and coming in the clouds of heaven. What is he referring here? He's referring to a third title. This is the Son of Man. The Son of Man, not a Son of Man. I'm a Son of Man. The Son of Man. To know what the Son of Man is, you need to go back to Daniel chapter 7, verse 14. 7 is the perfect number. Double that is 14. I made it so simple for you all. So Daniel 7:14 defines who the Son of Man is. The Son of Man is in the clouds. He is from everlasting to everlasting, has dominion over all tribes, nation, peoples, and tongues, which means he has the control over everybody. He is from eternity to eternity. Only God can make that claim. So what Jesus has done in that scenario there in the Sanhedrin, he has said to Caiaphas and to the other priests, basically, I am God. I am God. I am God. 3 times he says I am God within those 4 verses. Look at the reaction of Caiaphas. He tears his cloak, turns towards the Sanhedrin, and said, what further proof do we need? This man has blasphemed. Look at the reaction of Caiaphas. He knew exactly what Jesus was doing. See, for Jesus, in a context of a Jewish environment, in the context of standing in front of Caiaphas, the chief priest, Jesus was claiming divine titles 3 times. That's why Caiaphas reacted the way he reacted. Because he knew Jesus was saying, I am God. Probably another place, and another good place, is when he was in the temple in John chapter 8, verse 58. There, he's in the temple. He's talking to the Jews, so he would have been speaking Hebrew at this time. And therefore the Jews, they come to him and say, how can you know Abraham since you're not even 50 years old? In other words, you're too young to know Abraham. And Jesus responded to them, before Abraham was, I am, in English. But in Hebrew, that would have been Yahweh. That would have been Yahweh. That's the holy name for God. That's the personal name for God. That is the unique name for God. That is the eternal name for God. That is the name that every Jew was looking for. That is the name you'll find 6,823 times in the Old Testament. That is the name every prophet knew use. Any good prophet, any true prophet had to use that name. And that is the name that God was saying to Moses, beware of anybody who does not use that name. And anybody who comes in the name of another God, put him to death. So you can see why when Jesus, a mere man supposedly, there in the temple, used that name, not only pronounced that name, but applied it to himself. Look at the reaction of the Jews. They took up stones to stone him, because here a mere man was claiming God's holy name. So, in Matthew chapter 26, verses 62 to 66, John chapter 8, verse 58, I've given you four 4, not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 different places where Jesus claims, I am God, I am God, I am God. And that's why I love him. God bless you. This is Jay Smith, over and out.